Hi, I'm Andy Villamarzo with SBLive Sports Florida, and thank you for joining us for our 27th episode of the Coastal. And it is state championship time. We've broken down the metro classifications in the state of Florida. Well, now it's time for suburban and rural. And I'm going to bring on a good friend. He's been on a couple times already. Third time's a charm, right? We got Jon Santucci of the USA Today Network. And John, he's on the road actually to Tallahassee as we speak. So man is I don't know. I don't want to say I'm causing you to be kind of feeling dangerous driving up there and doing a interview.
I don't want to say that either, so let's not do that.
All right. Well, John, he's safe on the road, everybody. So don't worry. And we are going to jump right into it. We're going to go to Class 1 rule. We got Hawthorne and Madison County, which, John, this is a rematch from 2021. Madison County just edged out Hawthorne 13-12. Mike Coe was the head coach then. Now he's at Coffee County in Georgia. But you do have Price Harris. He had a kind of rough last season, 4-7, but he's got the Cowboys back to where they're usually at, and that's the state championship. And then you're against a Hawthorne team that they won it all last year in a, we'll say, defensive slugfest, 14-2 over Northview, but they've run the table here. John, what's your thoughts kind of immediately on this game? Do you feel like this is a game that kind of could play out like last year, like a couple years ago, or do you feel like this could be different than either one of those?
You know, my gut tells me it should be more high scoring, but for whatever reason, Hawthorne, I don't know if it's a trend, right? If it happens twice, does that make it a trend? I don't know. But the last 2 years, they've been held in check defensively in the state championship game. So that's surprising. CJ Ingram, though, I'm guessing he's right around 3 touchdowns a game, all purpose. So if he has a normal game, they should do better than they've been doing in the last 2 state championship games offensively. By the way, they won last year, so they don't care how many times they scored. But, you know, my initial thought of the game is this is the game we all expected. You and I both said that we believed Hawthorne was the best team in 1R all season. So the fact that Williston was ranked ahead of them in the power rankings didn't change any of our opinions on them. It was always going to be whoever comes out of Region 4, which was the Hawthorne, Williston, Pahokee, region, is going to play the Madison County. That was literally the only way it could play out in a this makes sense kind of a world. This is the game we got. Madison County is really good run game. You'll see a number of different guys tote the rock, and they do it effectively. And then you've got that Hawthorne. They're a little more well-rounded. You're going to see a lot of CJ Ingram. You're going to see a lot of Alvon Isaac. But both teams can play defense too, so I think this should be a really good game.
Yeah, I definitely agree that I think and if I guess we had to pick a team, I'm rolling with Hawthorne. I have seen them. I haven't seen Madison County. I have it on my bucket list. I want to go to Boot Hill and check out a game, but just seeing Hawthorne kind of really manhandle Blountstown in the state semifinals, which is really, really rare to see a team just dominate the way they did. But CJ Ingram, 3 touchdowns, like you aforementioned, Alvon Isaac. You got Caleb Rollerson. He was a North Marion transfer. Keenan Johnson at running back, he's been doing it all season long. And then defensively, Andrew Zaki, a Navy commit, he heads up that defense with over 100 tackles. So, I feel like this game is definitely going to play up to one that will probably be like the previous meeting. But, I guess we'll see if they kind of roll or play tight once again. But we're going to jump right into one Suburban, John.
Well, real quick, though. I said this,
okay.
I can't even remember which interview I said this in, so I apologize. But I do think one factor that cannot be overlooked is how close this game is to Madison County. This is basically in their backyard. It's going to be as close to a home game as you can get in a state championship that's all the way in Tallahassee. if
Yeah.
it's a close game in the third and fourth quarter and the crowd is really into the game, and this is not at anybody, you could see them really start to affect the game. You could see them start to affect the referees. We've all been there where the crowd has earned a flag, right? They all groan at the same time. They all yell at the same time. And all of a sudden, within a second or two, we see the flag come out where it probably wasn't coming out in a different scenario. So I'm really interested to see what factor the crowd has late in that game if it is a close game late. Last time it was really close, and it basically came down to a block punt was the difference for Madison County. So that's kind of one thing I'm really going to be intrigued by with that late Thursday game.
And if there's anyone that could speak on a game being affected by officiating, I mean, who better than the man who saw the Coco Aquinas game, right?
Yeah, I'm the only guy this year who's seen questionable officiating. It's shocking.
Well, we're gonna go away from that. We're gonna go jump right into one Suburban, and now, John, I know me and you have talked off air saying this one intrigues us. This is one of the better ones that we're like, it's gonna be that one that is very underrated. People aren't not a lot of fanfare like some of these other matchups, but Cardinal Mooney and Ocala Trinity Catholic, they're gonna meet for the 1S title, and I really like this matchup, and Trinity's rolling right now, despite being below the 500 mark. We know they're at 6-7, and then you got a Cardinal Mooney team that they got some Power 5 talent on their team, and you got to like what the Cougars have done under Jared Clark. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on this one? How will this play out?
You know, I really am a fan of everything Trinity Catholic has done this year. And that might sound weird because you're going, like you said, right? They're a sub 500 team. That is not based on talent. That is based on a masochistic schedule. You know, that they've went on the road. They played some really good teams. But what they've done in one Suburban when they play those teams, I think their win margin is somewhere in the 30s. They're undefeated against 1S teams. They are rolling right now. Like you said, what they did to FBA last week was astounding. And that was a big game for them. That was a rematch of last year's state championship game. And this is my opinion. I don't know if Trinity's coaches would agree with this. I thought they kind of laid an egg in that game. They performed under what they should have, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that at anybody. I just didn't think they played very well. I think FBA played very well. But when you look at the size of Trinity Catholic's O-line last year and the size of FBA's D-line, you would think that they would be able to fall forward and get 5 yards every single play, and it didn't happen. So I want to see how Trinity approaches this game because I think on paper they're the favorite. Cardinal Mooney's played really well. Cardinal Mooney, one of their losses was against Riverside, which is a 4S team, and it was a close game until Cardinal Mooney's quarterback got hurt in the second half, I believe. The other loss was against Bishop Verot, which, except for that shocking win by Booker, we kind of expected Bishop Verot to be in the 2S championship. So yep. What Cardinal Mooney's done is really good. That's a really good team. That's an athletic team. I love Teddy Foster. I'm a really big fan of his. He's headed to Florida. He's going to have an impact on both sides of the ball, as he has all season. I think Trinity's the team to beat. I felt like Trinity's been the team to beat for a bit. I'm not going to deviate from that, but I do think this could be a very good game.
Same here, and I just feel like since I saw Trinity Catholic at the very beginning of the season, they lost 35-10 to CCC, but people got to take into account the way the season started for them was a bit unorthodox compared to other teams that got to start in week one. Them per se, like Miami Central, they started in week two, but Miami Central scheduled it that way. They were going to start in week two, play in Las Vegas against Bishop Gorman. Trinity Catholic did not plan it that way. They're supposed to play FSU High. FSU High ended up having a COVID outbreak. They had to push that game midway into the season. And then talking to John Brantley right before the game, he even stated they were out some players due to sickness. So it was just kind of a funky week going into that game, which doesn't take anything away from CCC. Obviously, they're undefeated for a reason. They won that game pretty handily. But Trinity Catholic, just the teams they faced, St. Xavier, CCC, Calvary Christian, Reigns, they just played a slew of really tough teams that I think is really paid off dividends here in the 1S playoffs. And now they're hoping that 3-7 regular season leads to a state championship. So let's see if they can even out their record and come away with gold. We're going to move up into that 2 Suburban class. We have a team you've seen a couple times. I got to see them once in Cocoa, and they're going to take on Bradford, which, if this does sound a little bit familiar, it should to you if you're somebody that's following the state on a week or let's say a yearly basis, because they played last year in the state semis. And it's a close game when you look at the score, John, but we kind of both remembered it was a perfect storm for the Tornadoes, which, not making any puns towards their name, the Tornadoes, but they were able to get, I believe it was a punt block. They got a kickoff return or a punt return, and they really came out of the gates fast. And then Cocoa with Blake Boda, I had him as the player of the year last year. They were able to storm their way back in Stark. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, that game last year, that was 31-21. Cocoa, I get everything you're saying, right? Yes, it was a perfect storm for Bradford, but you still got to make those things happen, right? You have to get in there and block the punt. You got to block and return a kick. So I think Bradford's special teams just really showed up and kept them in that game really until the third and fourth quarter. So, and maybe they get another effort like that where, because they're probably going to have to. I just think Cocoa, for my money, that might be, I think Norland and a couple other schools, Miami Central, will scream about this. I think there might be the best public school in the state. And I know they're, without a doubt, in my opinion, the best suburban school in the state of Florida. The FHSA power rankings had them at number 1. I think that was generous because that Chaminade team is really good. But when you're talking about Javon Boggs, when you're talking about Brady Hart, they have a really effective running game that only needs to be effective, right? I mean, like their bread and butter is we want to throw the ball. We've got a Power 5 quarterback. We've got a Power 5 receiver. We have an elite slot receiver at the high school level. They're going to do what Cocoa does. And by the way, they have one of the best edge rushers in the state in Hilson. So,
yeah,
I think Cocoa creates a lot of problems for Bradford. 31 points is what Bradford gave up last year. They're the only team in 2 years that scored over 21 points against Bradford. And I think that's only been done twice. They only gave up, Bradford has only allowed 2 teams this year to score more than 10 points. This is the lowest scoring defense in the state, I believe, the last 2 years. And that Cocoa game, when you consider how good Bradford's defense is with Cleo Cummings, that excellent linebacker that's going to Marshall, remind me of his name?
The tight end?
Names than I am.
Chasen Clark?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
They have dudes on that defense, right? This is not a shot at Bradford. This is me saying I think Cocoa's that good. Cocoa, they have one blemish on their record, and that was them getting cheated out of a win at St. Thomas. That's not hyperbole or whatever. That's not even an opinion. The referees said, yes, we cheated. Well, they didn't use the word cheated. Basically we screwed you. So, this is an elite team. They beat Jones at Jones. They beat Venice week 2. They essentially beat St. Thomas Aquinas on the field, just not on the scoreboard. They beat Seminole handily. They routed a really good Treasure Coast team. This is a really, really, really good Cocoa team. So this is not to take anything away from Bradford. I just think Cocoa is one of those elite teams that's going to be really, really hard to beat. And this is a great offense-defense game. I want to see what Bradford does differently than they did a year ago. That to me is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and this is one of those games I'm able to kind of take a look at both teams just and seeing them in person. And I got to see Bradford right at the beginning of, well, before actually the regular season. It was the preseason when they faced Chiefland. And even though it was just 2 quarters, it was actually cut short because of lightning. And then being able to see Coco, we were at that game where Coco was able to beat Sanford Seminole, and Coach Ryan Schneider actually got ejected out of that game. They faced a lot of adversity against a very talented Seminoles team. Got to see Brady Hart under a lot of pressure from Preston Watson, the Duke commitment that night. And then I'm thinking of these two teams, and I'm like, biggest thing for me is how is Bradford, a team that is, I would have to say, isn't as offensively talented as Sanford Seminole. How are they going to generate points? And it goes back to the very outset of saying they're going to have to do the things on special teams, like returning a punt or a kickoff. They're going to have to block a punt or a field goal. They're going to have to find ways around their offense to score points, because to me, you're going to have to score 30 plus to beat this Coco team. And in my opinion, I don't think Bradford can do that. But is it possible? I mean, anything's possible, but it's going to be kind of tough for them to keep up with Coco if they're not finding a way to generate points. But John, let's go to 3S. This is another one. This is I feel like Suburban is just full of matchups that we really like this in these 3 days. Mainland and St. Augustine. And you've been, I'm going to go to professional admirer of St. Augustine. You have been all about the Yellow Jackets since the spring. And one of the biggest reasons is because of a Wake Forest commit, Lachlan Hewlett at quarterback. And I got to see the kid in Brunswick dice up the Pirates up there in South Georgia. You saw him back in the spring. Do we feel like St. Augustine maybe pulls away with a championship, first one since 2005, or does Mainland come away with the title, the one that they felt like eluded them last year against Lake Wales?
Man, am I allowed to just say yes? I think, to me, if I'm, hold on one second, I just got to check my map. If I'm buying a ticket to one game, it's probably this one. I think this game is at that level of one, just really two really good teams, as well as me saying I honestly don't know what to expect. I picked St. Augustine to win state in the spring. That had nothing to do with any other. I tried to explain this to Travis Rowland. This had nothing to do with any other team in the state of Florida. This had everything to do with St. Augustine. I love that offense. I think this is an offense that can generate a ton of points and is a really tough matchup because they have 4 legit receivers, and their 4th receiver, Wingo, might end up being the best one of all of them when it's all said and done. They've got dudes. Lachlan Hewlett, to me, I've said, you've heard me say this probably, I don't know, 5-6 times, maybe the most accurate quarterback in the state, because I feel like they put a lot on him and he delivers. His completion percentage is not as, I mean, it's still in the mid 60s. It's not as high as some of the other guys. That is not about him not being as accurate. That is more about the scheme that they have. And other coaches really try to give super high percentage throws to their quarterbacks, which there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like St. Augustine's letting him cook a little bit more, take some different chances. They're giving him different ways to attack a defense. So, and by the way, Devontae Lyons is outstanding as a running back. He's really good. So you've got a team that is complete offensively going up against a team that has what I think is Power 5 talent at all 3 levels defensively. LJ McCray, best edge rusher in the state of Florida. I think I told you about this play in October. I saw them play Osceola. Osceola had 3rd and 1. They ran away from LJ McCray, so all he did is literally pick up 2 offensive linemen and push them into the running back for like a 4-yard loss. One of the best plays I've seen all year. I don't even know if he touched the running back. It was one of the most dominant plays I've seen all year. And I said this in one of the interviews I've done this week. If LJ McCray decides he wants to come out of the phone booth with the cape on, he's unblockable, completely unblockable. It's literally just if he wants to be that guy on any given. Rodney Hill is an elite, and they got other dudes too. Christian Hudson, McCulloch on the D line. Rodney Hill is a guy I absolutely love, going to Tulane, but I think he's a Power 5 dude. Just doesn't have the height that colleges covet. And then you've got Zy'marion and Isaiah Shine at corner. There's just not a lot of, I don't care, Metro, Suburban, there's not a lot of teams that can boast that kind of college level talent. So I love strength versus strength. I've heard both coaches this week kind of crowing that everybody's saying, oh, it's offense versus defense, and St. Augustine has a defense and Mainland has an offense. Yes, those things are true, but this is unbelievable power versus unbelievable power. That's what we're talking about. Sign me up for this all day, every day. I love that this is a new, fresh matchup. It's not the next one we're going to talk about, which we've seen before. I love this game. I love everything about this game. I love the drama. I love the excitement. I love that these two teams feel very well, evenly matched. I think it'll be a one-score game. I think it'll be decided late. I think this will be the game of the week, personally.
Well, hey, how could it be topped by the next one? I mean, this is the one that I think all of us kind of right after Lakeland ended up winning 21-14, and Bill Castle, I believe about probably 2-3 weeks later, announced his retirement, and we still said Venice Lakeland. We were trying to talk ourselves into other teams just for the fun of it because it's more exciting that way, but we still ended up with the rematch, and that's Venice and Lakeland part 2. And these teams, I feel like, John, all this kind of started back in 2022, the spring game, when Venice went over there and lost to Lakeland. And I think the social media trash talking kind of started then, and both teams in the same classification, they knew there was a chance they could meet. They end up playing in the state title game last year, and then now you got Venice looking to avenge that, and Lakeland under first-year head coach Marvin Frazier, they're coming off just a thrilling 21-20 win over Buchholz, and I mean the Dreadnoughts are they're the healthiest they've been all season long. I've heard a lot of people say that the Dreadnoughts have been injured, banged up in the backfield, and just haven't been quite themselves. But I mean, even though we've already seen this, doesn't mean it can't have some, a lot of angles, a lot of intrigue. John, what do you think of this one, the Class 4S state title game?
Question. Can I ask you one question before I answer?
Yeah.
So you just mentioned, and rightfully so, the Buchholz Lakeland game was thrilling. What did you think of this game last year? Lakeland Venice. What, on a scale of 1 to 10 from an excitement standpoint, what would you grade this game as last year?
I'd say like a 6. And reason I'll go there is because you felt like Lakeland was in control, but the game was close enough to tease you to think like something might happen. But just because of Venice's, I'd say, shortcomings on offense, they weren't able to really do anything. Their defense, I thought, played fine. They did their job because 21. I think Lakeland scored kind of late. They got that one touchdown the fourth quarter, I think in the second half of the fourth. It left you wondering if Venice could produce more offense, which Brooks Bentley did a fine job last year. But it just left you wanting more. Like you felt like it was a movie that you thought there'd be some epic ending, and there really wasn't. It was like you knew what it was for what it was all the way through. Like Lakeland was destined to win. This was going to be Bill Castle's kind of going away state championship. Like he's going to win it and walk off into the sunset. Venice is going to kind of try to figure things out over the off season. And yeah, I mean, to me, not quite on the lower scale, not a 5 or lower. I don't want to say those completely like the best game. I'd say 5 or 6. I'm just going to middle it out.
This is just my opinion. This is not direct, I got to be careful because we're talking about high school kids, but I did not like this game last year. To me, it was almost predetermined, right? That Lakeland's defense was so good. I don't think Venice played bad, but I think they had less than 150 total yards of offense.
Yeah.
There's words for that. It's bad. Like It just was not, to me, a great game. And yes, the score was close, right? That's undeniable. It's not like Venice played overly poorly. That just was not an exciting game. And that, I'm certain, is part of my trepidation about not loving this matchup, which on paper is the one that we expected in, the first week of the season. I had Venice at 1 and Lakeland at 2. This is the game we thought we were going to get. What I like is the things you said before. Venice right now, 12-game win streak, utterly dominant in every game since they lost to Coke. And they are like killing people dominant. Like it hurts a little to watch. That's how good they've been. And then you got Lakeland, which, like you said, right? They're finally healthy. Xander's healthy. The running backs are healthy. What Demarius Rucker did to Lake Minneola, I'm pretty sure is illegal in a lot of states. Like he just, just bludgeoned that team. I think every running back and 2 of the ball boys had 2 touchdowns each in that game. So, just overwhelming what they did to Lake Minneola. And I love the fact that they came back against a really good Buchholz team and said, yeah, we're down 14 on the road. That's fine. We'll take care of business. And they did. So I'm certain that part of what is skewing my excitement about this game is last year's game, which to me just was not a thrilling contest. But on paper, this should be a really good game. Venice is not the same offensive team. They've got a lot of weapons in that backfield. Jaden Glasser is a phenomenal quarterback who I think if Central Michigan can get his signature in a couple weeks, that'll be a coup for them because he's a really good quarterback. I like the Wilder kid at running back. Zy Carl Lewis, is every bit as good as both as a receiver and as a punt returner as you could want. They've got a lot of talent defensively. Obviously, Charles Lester gets a lot of the attention there, and for good reason. I really like Dalen Platt. I really like Ryan Daly. They've got dudes, right? So This should be a really good game. I think if Venice tackles well, they're going to be fine. But this should be close. On paper, this should be really close.
Yeah, and you got to like in this game if Lakeland keeps the ball on the ground, kind of like they have the last couple weeks, which it looks like they've implemented even linebacker Malik Morris into the backfield. He had a couple touchdowns in that win over Buchholz. Can Venice answer the call again in their front 7 because they just played a DeLand team, playing that single wing, really trying to come at you in many different ways and misdirection. Lakeland, a little bit different in how they run the ball. They're really going to more directly tell you, hey, we're coming here, coming there, and more so, can you stop it? And they got dudes just like DeLand. It's just, can Venice answer the bell defensively and be able? And I feel like, unlike last